Okay, for some reason the call dropped. Let me get us back into the video. Hi, Mom.
Keys in your purse.
Sorry. All right, so this is, going back to that slide, if I can get it to go back. This is when you just have to laugh, right? Laugh or cry. All right, so that previous slide, I was talking about that job situation, but we're gonna move on to this. Oh, no, here's what I was gonna tell you with that. I was leading into, I was an employer myself for 17 years, and we ran a lawn care, landscape, and tree service in St. Louis, and I can tell you that this upcoming statement is absolutely true. All an employer cares about is making profit. That is what an employer cares about. And people can get their underwear in a wad about that all they want. Doesn't matter, because at the bottom of the line, it's all about profit. And are you helping profit? So every job is irreplaceable. Every position is necessary until it isn't, but every position is necessary. But here is the truth of the matter. We're all replaceable. All of us. And you can get upset about that all you want. It doesn't change it. You're replaceable. I'm replaceable. They can hire another English teacher. So don't you think it's a good idea for me to conduct myself at work knowing that a lot of times I just look like this to the corporate office? And that's just the way it is. I had a customer call me one time. She said, well, let me tell you about the customer first. So known them for years and years and years. When I was a teacher at a private school in my early 20s, I had her son in class. So long time relationship with this customer and her husband. About 6 years ago, St. Louis Magazine puts this list out every year, or it was in the Post-Dispatch. I think it was in the newspaper, but they put a list out of the top 100 people to know in St. Louis list. And her husband was on the list. He's a high-powered attorney, people that you want to know, right? So I'm in the office one day, I'm working, and the phone rings, and it's Jacqueline. And she says to me, Daisha, the young man that you have working in my yard has been standing around on his phone. Well, is that the case? So I'm going to listen to Jacqueline, right? I'm going to listen to my customer who pays me. That's who I'm going to listen to. And if she says that he's standing around on his phone in the yard, there's going to be a conversation. And he did not stay employed. Because guess what? We were able to get someone else. Right? It is not a difficult thing. So please, please let this sink in and let this begin to color how you conduct yourself in the workplace. It's about the bottom line. It's about profit margin. If you are increasing profit margin, chances are very good you will stay employed and perhaps move up in your company. If you lose track of that and you feel you have a right to pitch some kind of fit, or you feel like you have a right to get paid more, be careful, because an employer has the right to do what they want, especially in a state like Oklahoma, right? They can fire you on the spot. So moving forward, I found an article one time when I was teaching this several years ago, and I love the way he words this. You know, usually when you look up like job articles, you find the ones that are like 10 steps to a great interview, right? I like this one because this guy's like, here's why I'm not going to hire you. And I'm like, whoa. So I read through it and I fell in love with the article. So I've been using it ever since. But this is part of the first paragraph. He says, when you first walk into my office, I'm expecting you to be one of the 99% plus people who I know I won't hire in the first 5 minutes of talking to you. I'm hoping I will be proven wrong because I really want to hire you and be done interviewing. You see how I put that in bold print? Employers do not enjoy the hiring process. They don't enjoy having to do that unless they're kind of sick in the head, right? This is not something they want to spend their time doing. Unfortunately, most people looking for jobs don't deserve them. Here are the most common ways I know you don't deserve any job that I have to offer. And that sounds harsh, doesn't it? I love this guy, right? I love this guy. I like the way he thinks. So he's saying that you sit down in front of him and he starts listening to you talk. He knows within 5 minutes by looking at you, by watching your body language, by listening to the things that you say, that whole tell me about you section. He knows right away if you're going to be a fit or not. But here are the main points from that article. He says, if you send me a stupidly long resume, and we're going to talk a lot about resumes this week. He says, if your resume is more than 1 page, it means that you are a poor communicator. But Miss Dacia, I have all this work experience. Miss Dacia, I have military background. Miss Dacia, Miss Dacia, Miss Dacia. No, Elon Musk has a 1-page resume. Okay. And there are reasons for that. And I like this. He said, nail it. Be succinct. Show that you can be sufficient at work. So your resume and your cover letter are the first examples of work that a prospective employer has from you. If your resume does not follow known guidelines for resume writing, they're not going to consider you, or they're not going to take you seriously. So this is important to hear from an employer's mouth, right? If it's more than 1 page, that means poor communicator, that you're not able to squish the information down. And you're like, but it's all there. I should put everything. We'll get to that. If you can't tell me why you like your current job. So he says, let me know that you're passionate or don't waste my time. Now, what I want to say with this one is don't ever talk negatively about a previous place of employment. Don't talk negatively at all in this entire process. Don't talk negatively at work. Like, you're always being listened to, and you have to know in a work environment, especially like a corporate kind of environment, there's backbiting that goes on. And just because you think you're safe with this coworker or that coworker does not mean that you are. So don't be willing to talk negatively and say you're like, but it sucked. It was an awful place to work. What do I do? Okay, so let me tell you a little story. When I was going to school to get my master's degree, I had 6 children at this time. I needed to be bringing in some income on top of running our own business. So I took a job teaching in the 2-year-old classroom at a preschool. You're like, that's what's wrong with her. She's crazy. So I was working in this place, and it was an incredible place. It's a medical daycare, but also a regular daycare, preschool, high-end classrooms. I was in the 2-year-old classroom, and this was back in 2008. It was $265 a week for parents to have their child in my classroom. So not a cheap school, right? $265 a week. But they had the medical wing. And what that was for was, well, the woman who owns it, the CEO, she was a NICU nurse for years and years and years. And she saw that there was a great need for a medical daycare because parents of children who have special needs, who are at long hospital stays, who have disabilities, they cannot take them to regular daycare, and therefore they struggle to, keep their jobs and things of that nature. So she felt burdened to begin a medical daycare that was specifically dedicated to children with special needs. And so that part of the daycare insurance actually covers, which is fantastic. So what a mission, right? Incredible place. I had a little girl put into my classroom, a little girl and her brother, who had come out of the foster care system, who were actually in the foster care system, and their foster mother was bringing them to us. They were taken out of a house environment where Nini was the little girl. She was 2. Her hips were both broken. Her sperm donor, the sperm donor and the vessel that birthed her had literally broken the baby, literally broken her because of their physicality with her and the violence in that situation. So Nini initially was in the medical daycare wing, but then when they felt she was strong enough to move into a classroom, they put her into my room, and she had like this little walker thing, like she couldn't walk on her own, anything. And her brother Eric was 3 at the time, and they put him in my classroom as well because he was developmentally delayed to the point where he could not even hold a fork or spoon. He had been left in his playpen and completely neglected, couldn't use any kind of verbal communication whatsoever. Wasn't deaf, just never was cared for. Didn't know how to do a thing. So I was faced with the challenge of loving on those 2 babies. And I cannot tell you the joy that I experienced when I got to teach that little baby girl to walk. And just to be able to love on them and to get Eric to be able to start eating on his own. And you guys, incredible place to work. But the woman that owns it is a micromanager. And see, I'm going against my own cardinal rule here because I'm making a case in point here. She's a micromanager. Paychecks are always wrong because she won't allow the HR department to do them themselves. She has her hands on everything. We ran out of juice on a regular basis, so I was bringing in all of my WIC juice that I got from WIC because I had so many kids. I was bringing in the WIC juice just so the kids in my class could actually have breakfast. Now, remember how much I said my classroom was? This was a large facility. We're talking multi-million dollars a year facility. The electric got cut off. The water got cut off. And so we had teachers running to the grocery store to buy water to bring back so they could make bottles for babies in the nursery rooms. So a lot going on behind the scenes, and none of the employees ever ratted to the parents. Just didn't do it. There was fear, a lot of fear of repercussion because of the way she ran that company. I only stopped working there after a year and a half because she had made promises that if my kids were there, they could have a discounted rate, blah, 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 blah. And then she reneged on that, and I had not gotten it in writing. So when I'm in a job interview situation, even though I can tell you that it was not a healthy work environment as far as mental, I will never mention any of that in a job interview, in my workplace, except in the environment of my classroom, because I need you to understand how important this is. I will speak on the great vision that she had and what a credible idea it was and what a service it is to the St. Louis community. I will tell that story about Nini and Eric every time. Those are the things that I will talk about because I understand this idea. I have to be able to talk about what I learned from every environment I've been in. So you've had a negative workplace experience, I'm sure we all have. So be thinking about that and make notes that you can begin to memorize, like literally write things down. Use note cards, right? Literally write these things down. And what I learned from this place was, what I took from this place was, and get that into your head. So when someone asks you, tell me about, your previous workplace, or how have you handled conflict before? Always have it be something positive. Always. Very important, especially in the interview process. They're looking for your willingness to be negative. And he also said this, he said, don't BS me. I have a super BS detector. The worst kind of BS is where more than half of all the candidates say the exact same thing. Do you realize that? We all sit down and we answer the same way. We all say, I'm a hard worker. Don't ever say that again. Never say that. You can say, I'm an intelligent worker. and explain what that means. Use a different adjective and give an explanation. Never again say that you're a hard worker. Don't say the same things that every other person that sat in that chair before you has said. Make yourself stand out. He said, if you don't have a career plan or vision for the future, I'm not interested in you. Ambition is huge. You want to work in an environment that's healthy, that's structured, that is an opportunity for you to grow. You want to work in a place where this is important to them, right? So tell me how working for me helps you accomplish your long-term goals. If you just want a job, why should I care? There'll always be someone else. So have a well thought out vision. Be able to tell yourself, but also be able to express this in a job interview. How does working in that role, how would working in that role, how will working in that role, use the word will, not would, will help you move along in your career, in your plans, in your goals? Where are you headed? Have that laid out. I've got 3 or 4 different goal pathways in my head, and I can spit them out anytime in a kind of a situation like that, because I know this, right? I know how to do this. So have that I will mentality and talk about how working there pushes you forward in your path, right? Okay. If you don't have the skills that are advertised, please don't apply. Make sure that you can actually do everything that they have asked. And it's often a good idea, and I'm going to showcase this a little bit later, that you don't just look at the ad, go to their website and read. And I will give you a case in point for that in a little while. He says, answer my questions with conjecture, meaning don't tell me what you would do. Tell me what you did do. Give him verifiable information that if he were to call a previous workplace, he could look up the story or ask questions about the story that you just told. Make sure that your references are people who can actually talk about what you have done. So be verifiable. He says, show me you can get things done, that you are intelligent, how I fit your vision, be highly skilled, be passionate. He says, that's the candidate I'm going to talk to. That's the person that I'm interested in putting into my environment, because remember, it all comes down to the money, right? Employers need people who are going to help them make money. Doesn't matter what industry it is, it comes down to money. So before you speak to a customer, write a letter or click send. Proofread anything at least 3 times. Think about your tone. How are you coming across? Always read it out loud. Remember, because you hear things that your eyes don't see. Check your font. Remember that not everyone can read a 10-point font, so you want to make sure that it's at least a 12, not 14. 14 is bubble letters. Do you send the email now? Make sure that you're hitting the right buttons when you're online and you're sending information. Okay, make sure that you're doing everything right. Don't do it fast. Make sure that you're doing these things methodically, so that you're not sending something to more people than you want to. And we need to remember this with that idea. Once you send it online, there's no taking it back. Once it's out, it's gone. Finito, you're done. You could be blackballed. I'm smiling only because of what I'm about to show you. So we just remember that entire careers and multi-million-dollar programs often hinge on the wording of a single memo or Facebook post or a tweet. And y'all can get your underwear in a bunch about that one too. Go ahead, but know that employers are checking your social media. You are being checked out online. So shut it down, lock it down, but keep in mind they are spies who can get into your things. People who know people who know people, right? And anything can be screenshot. So know that they're checking you out. I've known handfuls of people who have lost their jobs due to social media posts. So don't let that be you. And then keep this guy in mind. Anyone recognize that person? Jennifer? Recognize him? No? You all, this is former United States Congressman Anthony Weiner. Yes, his last name is Weiner, which will make this story even more funny. So you want to look this up for yourself after I tell you a little bit about it, just so you can verify that what I'm telling you is true about Anthony Weiner. So Anthony Weiner, United States Congressman, big Twitter user, right? So he's got a beautiful wife. Well, at the time he did. Beautiful wife, Uma Abedin. She was, at the time, Hillary Clinton's right-hand gal, went everywhere with Hillary Clinton, like always together. So they were a high power political couple. High power. So Anthony, with his social media, came across some ladies that he couldn't resist. So he started having some inappropriate conversations through Twitter and other social media outlets, right? So one time he was real excited, and I use that term with air quotes around it, excited, and he was in his bathroom and he decided to snap a pic and send it to one of his lady loves. Only he didn't just send it to the lady love, it went to his entire feed. And here's the better even part of the joke. Within like a half an hour, right, it went viral. So then he's saying, I got hacked. That wasn't me. Now, it's easy to prove online that yes, it was you. So he lied to the entire nation on national television and got found out. Long, ridiculous, was all over the news, ridiculous story. Look it up, Anthony Weiner. And so after all of that like dies down, right? He's no longer in Congress. He decides to run for mayor of New York City. No joke, for real, he did. He thought himself that cool. And guess what? It happened again. He did it again when his wife was pregnant. So, long story. Look it up. Read about him for yourself. Anthony Weiner. So, entire careers can hinge on a single tweet. Multi-millions of dollars. Or just your livelihood, right? So let's be very careful online. Let's be very careful with our social media. I don't, on my Facebook page, I don't post political things. I do not, because I understand this concept. Anything can come back and bite me, and it's more important to me that I keep the bread rolling in, right? Then I get to express myself. I'm going to express myself ear to ear, one-on-one, more than I am going to use a social media platform that can be screenshot at any time and used against me. So, moving on from that. Remember that effective communication is the key to get you where you want to be in your life. Before you begin to communicate, you always need to know yourself well. Why do you do the things that you do? What do you want out of life? What are your weaknesses? What are your strengths? What are the things that make you unique? That is the first part of any interview, right? They're going to ask you, or they're not going to ask you, it's not a question, they're going to say, tell me about yourself. And we tend to say too much at that time. We tend to go over what we should say. Never tell them anything about your personal life, ever. And be looking at this. What makes you unique in a work environment? What makes you unique? That's what you want to tell about yourself, right? Work patterns, work habits, personality. I think it's a really great idea to put yourself through a personality test. My favorite one is the 16personalities.com. You can go on there and do that, and it gives you a lot of like really cool career stuff and just information about your personality type and how you work well with others, etc. So that's a fun thing. And I need to actually like put that on the slide here, but I haven't done that. So before we get into resumes, I do have these other things for us to take a look at. Make sure that when you're in this job hunting process that you have your voicemail set up as something that's professional. First of all, have a voicemail set up. And second of all, make sure that it's professional sounding, right? Have you ever called someone and their ringtone is like some ridiculous rock song or rap song and you're like, oh, or if they don't have a voicemail at all and you're like, did I reach the right number? I don't know. Or if it says something offensive, all of those things, no. Just simply say, you know, this is Jayla Stockton. I can't come to the phone right now. Please leave a message and I'll get back with you as soon as I can. Leave a very professional voicemail, Jayla. I'm just kidding. I see your face, so that's why I said your name. So make sure it is appropriate. Your email address too. I think I've already told you the email address story. Remember Sexy Cow 69? So yeah, just make sure that your email address is your name and some numbers if you need them. Those of us that have unique names probably don't need numbers. I don't need numbers. Jennifer, you probably need numbers. So remember, at any time you may be asked to do a phone interview, and those can get exceedingly intense and nerve-wracking very quickly. So just be prepared for that. When you're in the job hunting season, you want to make sure that you have like pen and paper that's readily accessible to you. Maybe keep a pad and paper in your car, because what if you get the call and you're in your car? Keep it, in the kitchen or somewhere where you can grab it quickly, so that no matter where you are, if they say, do you have time to talk right now? You can say, yes, absolutely. And you can take notes. Okay, so make sure that you keep that in mind. Remove yourself from as many distractions as possible as quickly as you can, so that there's not a lot of background noise. And always start by introducing yourself. Okay, always introduce yourself. Now, when it comes to filling out an employment application, remember, this is not a substitute for an application for a resume. I've heard some people say all the time, well, I filled out the application. Why do they need my resume? Because you know what they're going to do? They're going to check them against each other. They're going to compare them. And you're like, they don't do that. Yes, they do. Yes, they do. They're going to compare the two. Do they match? I have seen people not get hired in corporate environments because the two items did not match. So when you fill out a job application, have a copy of your resume with you so that you can copy from it to fill out the application. Make sure that the two items match and have the same dates, the same everything. Very important. Remember that this application will stay in an employee file until well after you're gone. So make sure that you keep that in mind. Guidelines for applications: have 2 pens with you when you go somewhere, just in case one dies, because that's Murphy's Law and that will happen to you. Follow directions very carefully. It's often best to read the entire application first and then get started. You ever had a test in a class and you just started taking it from the top, and when you get to the bottom, the teacher says you could have skipped the whole test and just put your name on it and turned it in? Anybody ever had that experience? I've done that to classes before. Right? Like, had they read the test thoroughly before they got started, they could have just left the room. So read it thoroughly. Read ahead, know what's coming, so you're prepared with how to answer the questions best. And that slows you down too. Will help you breathe before you start filling that stuff out. We all hate filling out applications. So again, have your resume with you. When you come across questions that don't apply, put the N/A, make sure they're capitalized. That means not applicable. If it says, what are your salary expectations? Be realistic, right? I think it's best to just put the word negotiable, because then they know that you're open to a discussion. So I think oftentimes it's best to wait to let them know about money unless it's absolutely specific, right? But don't sell yourself short, and also don't go overboard. So you want to be wise in that area. Be able to answer this question: why are you leaving your current job, or why did you leave your previous job? Again, remember what I said before, always be able to do that in a positive way. Do not ever negatively answer that question, because if you're willing to speak negatively about a previous workplace, you're willing to speak negatively about them too. Okay. If you do have a criminal background, be honest about it. Just be honest about it. It's always better to be honest about it, and then tag that. And anybody, if you know anyone who has a criminal background and they're struggling in the job hunting process, I've worked with a lot of men who have felony backgrounds and walked them through how to do this. Be honest, first of all. But then two, I used to call it being on vacation. How long were you on vacation? But did you work when you were in jail? Did you take classes when you were in prison? All of these different things, all of that can be used to your advantage. You can say, yes, I was there, and yes, this is what I did, but I took that time to better myself, and here's what I learned. We can always make any negative situation work in a positive way for us. If they ask you, any questions about race, age, sex, marital status, you do fill out honestly on an application. But if those things are asked to you verbally, like sitting down in an interview situation, they cannot ask you those things legally. They cannot ask you, do you live in a house? They can't ask you what your religion is. They can't ask you your sexual orientation. They cannot ask you any of those things verbally. On an application, it's different when you're actually writing those things out. So you want to be honest with those things. Always make sure that you're reading thoroughly. Be neat, take your time, and make sure that you sign all the places that say to sign. So here we go. Resumes. What is the purpose of a resume and or cover letter? We're going to talk about that in a second because I think I left that part out. So the purpose. Well, no, I'm going to go ahead and tell you that. I'm not going to tell you. No, I got that mixed up. So the purpose of your resume is not to get a job. It is to catch attention. Okay. It's to catch attention. It's to get an interview. That's the purpose of a resume, is to get an interview. So probably at this moment in time, unless you've had some professional help with your resume, chances are pretty good that it sucks. And chances are pretty good that a lot of you right now don't even have one. So we can work on that. The magic ingredient to all of this, before we jump into some resume information, is you have to have guts, right? You have to have the guts to put yourself out there and stop telling yourself, I can't. Be prepared for rejection, because it's going to happen, right? And we've talked about that. Stephen King with putting the spike in the wall. All right, so rejection makes us better. We learn from it. We ask questions. Let's say you don't get the job after the job interview. I challenge you to call that company up after you find out you didn't get the job and say, may I ask a few questions about why I'm not the one being considered? What might I have done differently? How might I better myself in the future for my next job possibilities? Number one, you're going to stand out to them. Chances are, and if you do it in a very respectful way, chances are you're standing out in a very positive way. So what if the person they hired didn't work out and they call you back? I mean, it's possible. And the second thing you do is you learn. Look at it as like a science experiment. You're not going to be working there, so why not call and ask questions? Learn from it. Better yourself. What could I have done differently? What was it about my resume that would have caught more attention? What was it about my interview style that isn't what you were looking for, so that I can better myself in the future? Who better to help you with that than the person who isn't going to hire you? So ask questions. And always remember that your swagger counts. Now, in a classroom that's just purely full of men, that always gets a good giggle. But the way you carry yourself absolutely matters. You want to make sure, remember we talked about how to have straight posture, that in this process you are very straight postured, you are excellent with your eye contact, and you are smiling. And always understand this, you do not want to look like everyone else. Stand out. Not like a clown, don't put on a rubber ball nose, but be different. Most people don't smile. Most people don't smile with their eyes. Smile with your eyes. Look approachable. All right, so here we are. Resumes. The very first thing that we need to think about and talk about when it comes to our header on our resume. What your header should look like is going to depend upon how much information needs to go on your resume. When you don't have a lot of information on your resume, you want to stack it out like the first example. So you want to take up space with it, right? And stack it out. The more information you begin to collect on your resume, the header needs to squish until it gets all the way down to the bottom. That's what mine looks like now on the top of my resume, because I have a ton of information on there, but it is still one page. My professional resume, my curriculum vitae is longer, and that's what we use for education. But a professional resume that I would use for a different environment outside of education, one page only. So you can see here that my font is different and on my name, and it is also larger. We want to make sure that your name stands out. And I love when I'm working with people on their resumes to choose a font that showcases your personality. This is the only place on the resume where you should do this. But pick a font that says a little bit of something about who you are. It's a subtle difference and it will stand out. Don't you want yours to stand out? So do that. Be thinking about that. Flip through your fonts. Find one that you're like, yeah, that's me. And that's what I've done here, right? This is the one that I'm like, oh, that's so me. I love that. I absolutely love it. So that's what I use. You can see on each one of those two, I also have my LinkedIn ID. Okay. Here's the reason for that. If you're not familiar with LinkedIn, you need to get familiar with LinkedIn. It is a professional social media site where you house your resume. Your profile is your resume in its entirety. So your paper resume, one page. The one that you email around, one page. But your LinkedIn site is everything about you. Everything. So you can let it be, who knows, if you were to print it out, mine might be 15, 17 pages because it goes all the way back to high school. Every job I've ever had is on my LinkedIn page. Shows no gaps in employment. It shows everything I've ever done. Another cool thing about LinkedIn is that it can house recommendation letters for you that are attached to jobs where they come from. So I have a couple from 25 years ago from a gentleman that I worked for and one of my professors when I was getting my bachelor's degree. Those, what they do is tell a prospective employer that my character and my ambitiousness are the same now as they were then. I am the same person. So LinkedIn is an incredible tool. Now I'll tell you, as an employer, I have used LinkedIn to this purpose. When I was at Vatterott and I was the interim program director for the general education department, they let me be in and be a part of all of the interviews for general ed faculty. And so with each one, I would look each individual up on LinkedIn. First of all, if they didn't have a LinkedIn account, I'd be like, no, we're not talking to this person. That's kind of crazy, huh? But we need professionals. Professionals know about LinkedIn. So then I would go in and I would read their LinkedIn page, but I would also go in and read the recommendation letters that they had left on other people's sites. And there's links to that on your page. So if you've left a recommendation letter for someone else, I can go in and read what you wrote. And so I would do that because here's what I learned. I learn how you communicate. I learn your writing style. I learn if all of your sentences start with I, that means you're a very self-involved individual. You didn't take the time to revise it. I don't want you in my workplace. So those are quick snap judgments, aren't they? But when you are in an employer situation, you have to make those calls because there's always going to be the ones who fit the bill. And you will find them by digging through. And so that's just something that you guys can do for yourselves, is have that LinkedIn page, have it thorough, begin to make good, strong connections on there. Always add me. I would be happy to be on there with you. And if we have had an excellent working relationship, I'm happy to leave you a recommendation letter. You can leave me one. It's a wonderful site. And so I make sure and put my LinkedIn ID at the top of my resume and my cover letter so that people know that they can go there for a bigger, stronger look at who I am. Okay. And I also have started including my personality type from that 16 personalities test, because I think people need to get a little bit of an idea what they're kind of getting in for when they meet me. Okay, I can be a little strong. So got a big personality. So, this gives them that heads up. If they know anything about those different personality types, they're like, oh, we know what she's like. Or they're like, hey, I bet she'd be an excellent speaker. Right? So yeah, people with my personality type tend to be politicians or professors. How crazy is that? It's kind of awesome. Journalists, you know, that kind of thing. I love it all. So we got a whole lot more about resumes coming at you, but I want to hit the cover letter first. I keep checking the time because I don't want to run out of it. Oftentimes your cover letter is necessary. Okay, some people will say, attach your cover letter here. And then you stress out because you're like, oh, I don't want to write this. How do I write this? And you're worried and you just are so concerned about pulling together a cover letter. I remember what that's like. I used to feel that way, but I don't anymore because I learned some things. So from the textbook, it says this: whether email or print, make sure that your cover letter is brief. Say what you want and why. Assume that your readers will be scanning for just the information they need and make it easy to find for them. Now, that is a huge thing that we're going to discuss quite a bit about. Focus more on how you help the company or organization than working on why it would be good for you. I'll talk about that too. Be careful not to start too many sentences with I, and state your interest and qualifications in a way that make your reader want to speak with you or hire you. So some things there that we touched on. Right? They're just scanning your cover letter and your resume. Scanning. If you haven't done any amount of research on this company, you haven't thoroughly read their ad, and you have not checked them out online, you're going to miss the important keywords that if you had done your research, you can change and adjust your resume and your cover letter to stand out and grab that employer's attention. You use their keywords in your resume. There are big corporations now that run resumes through checkers, or digital checkers that are specifically looking for certain language in the resume. And if it doesn't catch a certain percentage of that language, it kicks it out to the trash. How crazy is that? So you want to be using keywords from the employer, and you're like, well, dang it, that means I have to change and adjust a resume every time I send one. Yes. You seriously want the job that you want? Yes, you do. Tailor, tailor, tailor to every job you apply for. Tailor your information to fit the company. This needs to be about how you benefit them, not how it benefits you, except for that vision idea. You want to say, here's where I see myself in the future, but here is also how I benefit you. Never ever say, I'm the best person for this job. Don't ever say that. Don't come across as egotistical. But don't be self-involved either. So that's good information. That, again, was from the textbook. So here's from my research. Remember that your cover letter is your first attempt at selling yourself to this organization. So we want to make sure that we're making good choices. It's your first impression. It also is one page. Use resume paper. Have it match the cover letter in format. And what that means is same font, same size, same header. So whatever your header is on your resume, copy paste it onto your cover letter. Exact same thing as if it were letterhead. Have them match. Okay? Write it in a narrative tone, meaning you are going to use I, we're just not going to overuse it. Highlight experiences and skills that are not on your resume. If it's on your resume, it does not go on your cover letter. If it's on your cover letter, it does not go on your resume. The two items need to complement each other, not repeat each other. So you're like, well, I can only fit this amount of stuff on my resume. Well, cool, because you're going to have a cover letter too. You can hit on a couple of those other things in the cover letter, okay? Use action verbs frequently. Never, ever, ever, ever say, I hope to hear from you. You say, I look forward to hearing from you. Do you hear the difference? I look forward to hearing from you. I hope I hear from you. Hope is passive. Don't be passive. Be confident. I look forward to. I'm more apt to call someone back if they're confident, right? No personal information. I had a student turn a cover letter in one time. When I was teaching at the trade school, cover letters were part of our curriculum, and so everybody had to write one. So he turned his in one time, and the language in there, he said, I am my son's Boy Scout troop leader. And I was like, no, no, no. And he was so offended because I said no. And I said, listen, just say volunteer for Boy Scouts of America. Use the word volunteer. Don't say son. It's no one's business in a workplace. If you have children, how many children, don't let them know. Because they make snap judgments, depending upon your age group especially, right? Can you imagine? I go to a job interview, I sit down, I say, oh, by the way, I have 6 kids. If you were the employer, what thoughts immediately cross your head? She's going to miss work. Her phone's going to be ringing all the time. Never, ever, ever, ever say, I am my son's Boy Scout troop leader. No, you're a volunteer with the Boy Scouts of the United States. Or Scouts now, sorry. Scouts, right? No personal information. Don't tell them you're married, nothing. I mean, maybe you got a ring on your finger so they can see it, but you don't need to talk about it. Use the jobs ad description to find the keywords that should be included in your letter, such as detail-oriented. Now, here's where this is like one of my favorite parts. So show a deeper understanding, do your research. You really want to work at this company? Read. So here we are. Several years ago, well, this was in 2011, I found this ad. I had just recently at this point started teaching cover letter and resume information, and I came across this ad on Craigslist. Craigslist has a lot of opportunity out there for people in the trades. And I found this ad and I fell in love with this ad, so I've been using it ever since. So it was for an HVAC service person / installer in South St. Louis County. So I'd like to read through this, and then we're going to discuss what I'm going to talk about, because we're not actually discussing. We're not in the room together, right? If we were in a room together, we'd talk about it, but I'm going to talk at you. So I'm going to read it, and then I'm going to point out a few things in it. How we need to read through the lines when we are looking at an ad so we get the information that we need and ask ourselves, what can I use to my advantage? So here we go. 60-year-old heating and air conditioning contractor seeks to hire 2 more service installer personnel for residential and light commercial work. 5 years field experience, a St. Louis City and St. Louis County license are required. Also required are a neat appearance, good driving record, and a very positive attitude. We offer competitive salary, commissions, 80% paid health insurance for employee and family, paid holidays, paid vacation, uniforms, company van for service persons, and overtime over 40 hours. We try to work everyone a minimum of 40 hours per week the entire year with little time lost, if any, during the winter months. We have not had to lay off anyone since 1988. Please contact Harster Heating and Air Conditioning by sending your resume to, and then he gives you 3 methods. So send it to the address on Gravois, fax it, or email it. So here we go. First line, 60-year-old heating and air conditioning contractor. My first question, because I'm a grammar Nazi, is the company 60 or is the contractor 60? He's also missing dashes on 60-year-old, right? Grammatical error right off the bat. Boom. Doop, doop, doop. Drives me nuts. I also see there in that first line that they're hiring 2 people. So they're hiring 2 people. Does that make you wonder why? Why would they need 2 people? So, things to put in your head. He mentions both residential and commercial work. Let's say that you're fresh out of school and all you have is some residential work. You want to pay attention to the fact that he's also looking for somebody with some commercial experience. I'm not saying don't try. I'm just saying, understand that. Don't be disappointed if they say no. But if you are someone who has residential and commercial work, you want to make sure you mention those two things in your resume / cover letter combo somewhere. So then he lays out the requirements. Do you want to mention the requirements in your letter combo? Yes, you want to put in the requirements of the prospective employer in your cover letter / resume combo. Yes, imperative, because that's what they're looking for. And then he also says, also required. So you want to, again, neat appearance, good driving record, positive attitude, figure out a way to work in that language. Then he lists out this huge, long we offer section. Sounds super good. I remember the HVAC guys would be reading this in class and they'd all be like, dang, I want to apply there. And I'm like, well, go for it, you know? But do you see a spelling error? Anybody want some overtime? So again, grammar Nazi, I see grammatical errors. What that tells me is this ad was written quickly. What that tells me is I might want to move on to the next ad. Might, but don't give up yet. Because if a person's not taking time to edit something that they're putting out there for the whole St. Louis City region to read that says they're professional, are they going to put something out there that's not been edited? We need to be careful about that. So, overtime. Then the best sentence in the whole thing is the next one. We try to work everyone a minimum of 40 hours per week the entire year with little time lost, if any, during the winter months. The most important word in that entire sentence is try. Is this a guaranteed 40-hour-a-week job? No, it's not. And what part of the year are you going to potentially have less hours? Winter. You need to know that and understand that before you apply for this kind of a position. So again, not something you want to be shocked about. And then he says, we haven't had to lay off anybody since 1988. And you read that and like, wow, that's really positive, right? That sounds really awesome. But what if people quit? That's a totally different situation, and they are hiring 2 people. So maybe we want to do a little bit more research, get a little more information. And then out of those 3 choices, do you want to send your resume through the mail, through fax, or through email, or upload to the site? Well, upload to the site or email, right? Because it gets there immediately. That's what you want to do. Don't go with those other 2 options. That fax machine might be 30 years old and it comes across looking like, right? Like it's all like, yeah, and snow and you know, it's awful. Don't use fax. Don't do fax. Plus you have to almost go to the library to even find one nowadays. So no fax. So at this point, if we were in a classroom together and it was a long class, like when I was teaching at the trade school, my classes were 4.5 hours long. So we had lots of time to kill. But I would click on this link and we would go to their website. Harster Heating and Air Conditioning has a website and it's fantastic. And so I alluded to this a little bit earlier, but when you read the website, you're going to get more information about the company, right? You're going to be able to tell that Harster Heating and Air Conditioning has actually been around for 60 plus years. You'll find out that they are hiring 2 people in this ad because the company is growing, like leaps and bounds growing, because of his strong work ethic. You're also going to discover his vision statement. You're going to discover that where it's located was his grandfather's hardware store when he was a kid. You're going to discover that they are on call 24/7. That's not in the ad. So if you only went by what you saw in the ad and you get in an interview and they're like, now we're 24/7, are you cool with that? You're going to be like, ah. But if you read the website, you're prepared. There's a lot of cool stuff that you can get off the website. Off the website too, you find out that this guy has a sense of humor because his website's a little bit kooky, and that one of his favorite actors is John Goodman, who's from the area where this company is located. Like he's from St. Louis, right around where the Gravois, where this is on Gravois. So to him, that's important, right? So you want to make connections with people. You want to use keywords from their ad or their website. So yeah, we would really spend a lot more time looking at the website and pulling out information, but we don't have that much time. So cover letter, when you're writing it, this is your first paragraph. Simple. Don't stress it. Yes, it starts with I. I'm responding to your ad for the position of HVAC service installer listed on January the 10th, 2011 on Craigslist.com. Put the position that you're applying for, the date you saw that it was posted, and where you found it. That is your entire first paragraph. Boom, done, move on. Stop stressing that. Second and third paragraph we're going to look at in a second. That's where you sell your fish. Now, third and fourth paragraph, if you have to have a fourth, simply say this. Thank you for your consideration. I look forward to hearing from you. Boom, done, no stress. Don't worry about saying something cool that they'll remember. Thank you for your consideration. I look forward to hearing from you. That entire last paragraph is just a formality. It is a placeholder. Say the words that you need to say and let it do its job. Because in the middle is where you need to get cool. And here's how you do that. I had actually a few years ago, a student turned in a cover letter very similar to this, and it literally blew me away to the point that I've crafted it more, and I use this as the template now. And this is what I've been teaching for years, and it has helped student after student get jobs. So I'm writing in response to your ad dated January the 20th, 2011, posted on Craigslist for the position of service installer. Confident that I would bring value to Harster Heating and Air Conditioning, I'd like to give you a brief overview of my skills and experience. Here's how my qualifications meet your company's goals and needs. Here's how my qualifications meet your needs. Tell them that. And then list out what their needs are. List their requirements. So what I've done on here is I've put the 5 years field experience, a St. Louis City County license. Remember the positive attitude? With a customer's always right attitude, that part's on the website. He says that. My philosophy has always been the customer's always right is the exact language on the website. Put that in here. Availability for 24/7 service. Learned that on the website. That's his need. My qualifications, and then list out how your qualifications meet those needs. Thank you for your consideration. Available before 10 o'clock each morning. I look forward to hearing from you. Perhaps you are currently working. You want to just simply state a time that they can reach you. Don't say why, because I'll be at work. No, don't do that. Available before 10 o'clock each morning. I look forward to hearing from you. Okay. All right. We're doing good on time, I think. I am really doing this fast. Use this, use this, use this, use this, use this, use this. Trust me, use this. So after about 3 years using this in the classroom, maybe 4 years. Oh, here's a template for you. So that's on the PowerPoint too. So after some time of using this, oh, I've got my Anthony Weiner there. Remember Anthony Weiner? After some time of using this in class to be teaching hundreds and hundreds of students how to successfully get a job. Like our classes were in 10-week rotations, and I would have 30 students. I was teaching anywhere between 6 and 7 classes a term. So 10-week sections, what, 100 and, well, what's 6 times 30 is 180. So I've got 180 students every 10 weeks teaching this stuff, like just cranking these people out into St. Louis, right? Just cranking them out. So I took it upon myself to write Dave Harster a thank you note. I sent him this big email, told him about, I told him different stories. I told him that I had been using his ad and his website to teach Comp 2 for, years. Told him that he had been touching people's lives, that he had been changing lives, and he didn't even know it. And I just, I sent him the cover letter example, just thanked him and told him a few stories so that he would, be able to feel good. But I just felt like this driving need to thank him for what he did without knowing it, because that's me. And he wrote back. Read this. Let's read this together. This is life-changing stuff. He said, Miss Wilkinson, that was me. Thanks for the email and all the feedback on my ad. Yes, you're right. I had no idea I was making such an impact. I like the template you've come up with for the cover letter. Cover letters are usually all the same or very similar, stating, I would like to further my skills with a good company. Just once, though, I would really like to see the statement. This gives me chills. I love to work. I was taught to work hard, to be productive, and make a difference where I'm employed. I would interview that person even if I didn't have a position open for them and keep their resume for the future. Thanks for all the time you spent emailing me. That is a long email. I mean, it was, I can't help it. So, but look at that. Do you see what he said there? Use that, you guys. Use that language. I love to work. I was taught to work hard, to be productive, and make a difference where I'm employed. Make a positive difference where I'm employed. Make yourself stand out because the average person doesn't know to write that. And here we have an employer straight up telling you, this is what I want to hear. Use it. Use it, use it, use it. Use it. I mean, keep this PowerPoint forever. Share it. Tell people that you care about, share it. But if it's not people that you care about, don't give it to them because you want the job, not them. You see what I'm saying? Okay. I love to work. I was taught to work hard, to be productive, and to make a difference where I'm employed. Abso-freaking-lutely use that information. Now some more resume info. We'll see how far we can get in 10 minutes. Do you need an objective statement at the top of your resume? Well, I mean, the question really is this. Do you need to take up space? I no longer have an objective statement on my resume because I don't need to take up space. They know what your objective is. You're applying for the job, right? Your objective is to get the job. So why do you need to say it? You don't need to say it. But if you need it to take up space because you don't have a long work history and you don't have a lot of volunteer information, then we want to include an objective statement just to take up space. But keep in mind, an employer does not care about your objective. He cares about his or hers, theirs. If you use an objective, make it showcase how you fit the company. Okay, use the company name, put their name in it. Tell about how you feel you would benefit Harster Heating and Air Conditioning because, right? So it's about how you benefit them, not you. Now, make sure that you're using those right keywords. And then here, I'm gonna just put up this information. These are supposed to be bullet points under on a job resume or on a resume, you know, where you're listing out your duties. You want to always use bullet points and not a paragraph. And next to each bullet point, and I put the bullet points on here, but they don't show up. I need to just scrap this whole page and redo it so I can make it look correct. But I'm going to show you an example of what it needs to look like a little bit later. But you want to have a new verb every bullet point. Don't use a verb a second time on the resume next to a bullet point. So next to each job, you don't want to put produced, and then the next one produced, and then the next one produced. Right click on that word and find a synonym, change it up. There are people who don't get jobs just because they didn't vary their verbs. Okay, change your verbs up and use specific language. We can take a look at that a little bit more later. Here, there are lists and lists on the internet. If you just type in active verbs for resumes, you'll find all kinds of lists. This is just one. I found one time, especially at the trade school, that when I was, you know, more time to do this with everyone, I was passing out this list that had broken all the verbs down into duties. So it was clerical, management, I forget what all the titles were, but all the different types of things and the different words that go with each category. It was amazing. It's an incredible list. So, like it or not, an employer is usually going to make a judgment about your resume in about 6 seconds time. There's been scientific research done on this. They are scanning for keywords. If they don't see keywords, they're going to toss it. So we want to make sure that we put our most important information first, because the research that I've read says that when they have done this and they have watched through like Scanner, watched an employer look at a resume, they look across the top 1/3 of the paper and then down the right-hand column. So we want to make sure that at the top 1/3 of the paper and down the right-hand column, we have information that needs to stand out like this. Okay? So we want to put our most important information first. And a lot of the times, just the basic structure is we put our education first and then our work history and then maybe military experience. But if this is a job that really values the fact that you might be a veteran, we want to put military first. If it's a place that's going to really value your work history over your education, we want to put work history first, which means every time you're putting out your resume, you might have to change the order of things. Sometimes your education is the most important thing. Sometimes your work history is the most important thing. Sometimes your volunteer abilities are the most important thing. So if you know something about the employer that you're going to be applying for, you want to put the information first that you want them to see. Because remember, scanning 6 seconds across the top and down the right-hand column. What do you need to stand out? Always keep in mind where you're going, how serious you're going to take this. Save it as a PDF file, much like your papers, right? And save it as you go. Constantly be saving your resume. Constantly be updating your resume. Save it as a PDF. Email it as a PDF. Upload it as a PDF. It can't be changed. It will look exactly the same as the way it looked on your computer. So we want to make sure that we're using effective titles. If you've had 5 different jobs and they've also all been a customer service rep, maybe change up the language a little bit and use some synonyms. Don't make up job titles, but use some synonyms. Pay attention to your typography. Again, I am just a Times New Roman girl. I like Times New Roman 12-point font. Sometimes I'll slip it down to 11, but I stay in that range. You want to make sure that you're using the type of font that's easy to read, that is made for ease of reading. Not all fonts are the same. Psychologically, they are not all the same. So you stay with one that's made for body text. And if you're unsure what those are, look up fonts for body text and you'll find them. I also enjoy Garamond. Garamond is what's often used for novels, okay, because it's made for excessively long reading. It's easy on the eyes. Arial is also another one. I just don't like the look of Arial. That's a personal preference. Make sure that you're using bullet points, again, because they're easy to read. Remember, 6 seconds is a very short period of time. Proofread it at least 3 times. How much time do we have? 12:16, we have 4 minutes. Explain the benefits of your skills by using achievements instead of responsibilities. You want to talk about things that you accomplished more than just job duties. It's more important to say that you were awarded Employee of the Month 2 times than it is to say you're excellent at scrubbing toilets, right? So anything that you've been recognized for or that you've achieved, you want to put at the very top of any, you're listing out your achievements, your duties at the job place. You want to put achievements first so that those are seen when they're scanning your resume. And we do have, 4 minutes left. I think that we can easily remember to come back to the bright red screen, right? I hope so. So if you guys can help me remember that, I'm going to pop out of there. We'll come back to the bright red screen. Let me stop the screen share. Well, can I stop the screen share? Where's the button to stop the screen share? It's not letting me stop the screen share. Well, can you guys see what I'm looking at? Can you see my computer screen? That I'm on Blackboard?
We see your desktop.
That's it? Okay. Well, that's interesting. I need to stop the screen share and it's not, the drop-down box isn't there. I don't even have the button for stopping our meeting. So let me call out attendance and then I'll figure it out. Corey, are you here?
Yeah, I'm here.
Heather?
Here.
Becca?
Here.
Ben?
Here.
Trin?
Here.
Angela?
Here.
Sarah? Moses?
Here.
Anastasia?
Here.
Drexel?
Here.
Daniel?
Here.
LG? LG, are you here? Okay. Annie?
Here.
Madeline?
Here.
And Kinley?
Here.
Okay. Fatima?
Here.
Jennifer? There you are. Jayla? I know Jayla's here because I picked on her. And Nicole. I saw Nicole too. So okay, I'm going to go ahead and submit that. I do not know why the drop down is not there. That's so strange. So, okay. Well, we got a minute to spare and I feel like I am out of breath. So we got a lot more of this to come on Wednesday. I hope that this is good information for you. It's vitally important. Remember Dave Harster's words and begin to implement those things, put them into your vocabulary. You want to be productive and make a difference where you're employed. That's what an employer wants to hear. So let's be the people who choose to say those things. Okay. And again, on Wednesday, we're going to dive in. We got a lot more to look at. We'll definitely be looking at more of this information next Monday too, because we're going to get into body language and interview skills and all of that. It's just awesome stuff. I love it very much. So with that, we can go ahead and close if you all are good with that. Everybody good? Okay. All right. Thanks for listening to me for an hour and 20 minutes. All right, I'm going to figure out how to close the class because I don't even see the buttons. So you guys take care. Have a great day. And I will see you on Wednesday.
Have a great day.
You too. Thank you. Oh, I think I know what's going on. It's on my computer, on my monitor, my TV. There it is. There it is.